Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today, and I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I thought I'd go live for the WWE news video that we do nearly every day, sometimes schedule permitting, but we try and do it every day. We try and talk about all things WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling. There is going to be an AEW news video coming later today and an Impact news video coming today, so it's a busy day. So I thought, you know what? I want to change things up on the channel, always evolving here, bringing in new viewers, trying to do things a little bit different. So I thought what I might try and do going forward is have at least one live video per day or one live stream per day here on the channel. So it probably the majority of the time is going to be the WWE news video because the other videos go out later on in the day. And with WWE, you never know what's going to happen. There is new news all the time. So again, this is something we'll try and figure out. Most days I'll try to do at least one live video per day, but we'll see how it goes. We'll evolve. But let's start off talking about the Royal Rumble. Of course, the Royal Rumble is less than, 2 weeks away at this point, or just over 2 weeks away? Nevertheless, it's rapidly approaching at the end of the month. This time it's going to be on a Saturday, of course. There's been a lot of rumors recently regarding WWE possibly opening the Forbidden Door. Now, I don't know about you, and we'll get into the news in a second, but I don't know about you. I am so tired already of the Forbidden Door term. You know, the whole, they're going to enter the Forbidden Door. They're going to go into the Forbidden Door. It's just like, well, people don't, and I know it's a term that Tony Khan created, but it's one of those things, isn't it, that just, it's cool until it's not anymore. And the whole Forbidden Door term is just a bit like, it's one of those things, I guess, that like pro wrestling companies, that they just eventually use it to death. And that's kind of the problem. And I guess that's part of the issue when it comes to the Forbidden Door. But that's just my thing. That's just my thing. Anyway, we'll talk about the Royal Rumble. There's been a lot of rumblings, eh? There's been a lot of rumors about possibly WWE opening up their doors and opening up the Forbidden Door when it comes to an entrant in the Royal Rumble match this year from another company. Now, we know this is already happening when it comes to the Women's Royal Rumble match when it pertains to Mickie James, of course, the Impact Knockouts World Champion. That's going to happen in the Women's Royal Rumble, and a report came out from WrestleVotes that essentially said WWE is seriously considering having a Forbidden Door entrance in the men's Royal Rumble match. So obviously everyone started speculating, saying who could that be? Who could that entrant be? Most people assumed it would have to be, it could be someone from Impact Wrestling, but given how WWE likes to work things, potentially it could be someone from AEW, considering there are a lot of wrestlers on the AEW roster that have an extensive WWE background. Names like Dean Ambrose, Chris Jericho, even Adam Cole, or, the list goes on, or possibly just an AEW person like Hangman Page, or I mentioned ex-WWE people, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk. Just the story that would be. So people's imaginations have run wild, to say the least, when it comes to this rumor about an AEW star being in the Rumble, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen because WWE has opened up the Forbidden Door for this year's Royal Rumble event, as I mentioned. However, fans should not be expecting any AEW talent on the card. Speculation has been rife on potential non-contracted talent appearing after it was confirmed that Knockouts World Champion from Impact Wrestling, Mickie James, would be in the Women's Rumble. Now, it had been reported previously, as I mentioned by WrestleVotes, that WWE is hoping to have someone enter the Forbidden Door within the men's match too. However, if that is to be the case, the wrestler will be coming from somewhere else other than AEW. However, in an update from the Wrestling Observer newsletter from Dave Meltzer, who, it must be said, I think a lot of people have kind of veered away from assuming what Meltzer says is gospel anymore, considering certainly over the last 2 years, especially when it pertains to WWE, not so much with AEW, but when it pertains to WWE, Meltzer's got a lot wrong. Do we have to say WrestleMania Chamber? Elimination Chamber has been announced. We'll talk about that later on. But this does technically involve AEW, so I'm assuming it's probably accurate. He noted that there will be no AEW involvement at the Royal Rumble. Therefore, there won't be any surprise appearances from anyone on the All Elite Wrestling roster. He specifically mentioned former WWE Champion Jon Moxley, who has been rumored since his upcoming return to GCW was announced. Now, the 2022 WWE Royal Rumble, of course, is scheduled to take place on January 29 from the Dome at America Center in St. Louis, Missouri. So it's not totally surprising, to be honest with you, this story, that there isn't going to be an AEW star in the Rumble. I think a lot of us would probably be lying if we said we thought that was really the case. A lot of people, certainly my reaction to it when it was the idea of, there might be an AEW star, there might be an AEW roster member appearing in the Rumble, it was always a case of, I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, even the Mickie James one, I'm still like, that's crazy, because WWE, they don't play well with others. They never have. Now, it's not to say they've never worked with other companies before, because of course they have. They did it in the 90s, SMW, AAA, the NWA, etc. They have done it. But this idea that they would be, at a time which they're really putting themselves even more on an island with the way that they're changing their model of recruitment when it comes to NXT. They're not even searching the indies anymore. They're looking for colleges. They're trying to separate themselves so much from other pro wrestling companies. You even had the statement in the Toronto Sun saying we're not even in the same business as AEW. They're a wrestling company. They're a pro wrestling company. We're entertainment. We're something different. So I find it difficult to believe that they've suddenly, whilst they're radically changing their philosophy anyway, they've changed their philosophy, which has been the case for years. I mean, just Vince McMahon in general, that they don't work with other companies. Would they have one person come in? Yes, but we're talking about someone that wouldn't be from a direct competitor. And I just think that's the case. I think that's the case with this one. So it's not much of a surprise. I think that people, like I said earlier on, their imagination ran wild because they started to think, man, what about Chris Jericho? You know, he did appear on the Broken Skull Sessions on the WWE Network right before WrestleMania, and that's fair, but it's one thing to be on the WWE Network on Peacock, interviewing, with Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's not in WWE storyline continuity. That's not the week-to-week storytelling of programming. And if anything, it did benefit WWE because it got people talking. They signed up to the network and they watched WrestleMania. And I think AEW rather did it because they just thought, well, it'll give us some buzz. Chris Jericho's an AEW guy. But this would be on another level. So the chances of Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley, CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, Hangman Page, whoever you want to say, Christian Cage, appearing in the WWE Royal Rumble this year isn't going to happen. Now, it's not to say that a Forbidden Door entrant isn't going to happen, because we absolutely could see a situation, I suppose, as like with Mickie James, where maybe an Impact Wrestling star appears in the Royal Rumble. I did a video the other day talking about who that could be. People have talked about Moose. I still lean more towards, if it was going to be an Impact star in the Royal Rumble, it would have to be someone with a WWE background, because that's just how WWE works. So you'd be looking at W. Morrissey, Matt Cardona, the Good Brothers, maybe to reunite with AJ Styles. That would make a bit more sense, in my opinion. And from a Good Brothers perspective, they'd be like, we're appearing on WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Wrestling, all in the space of like 12 months. The issue, of course, with the Good Brothers is that they hate WWE. They hate Paul Heyman, and they just hate the whole place. They've said a lot about it since they've left. So I don't think that would happen either. But who knows? Who knows? And like I said, nothing is certain when it comes to Dave Meltzer anymore. I think the days of it being gospel when it comes to Meltzer are kind of done. When it pertains to WWE, but given that this is actually AEW, I do lead it to probably be accurate. And also as well, just given WWE's recent comments about AEW, what they're trying to sort of slam them in the press. They're saying that AEW's gory and self-mutilation, and trying to almost imply to television networks and sponsors that they shouldn't pick them up. At the same time, these two companies are going to do business, and an AEW star is going to be in the Rumble. I highly doubt that. I doubt that. So it's one of those things. Like I said, I always thought I'll believe it when I see it, and it doesn't look like we're going to see it, to be honest with you. Justin Cruz says, so no Dean Ambrose in the Rumble? No, not going to happen. And also Justin says, I want Bray Wyatt to come back at the Royal Rumble. Again, not going to happen. Bray Wyatt's got his feelings about WWE, certainly. Let's move on and talk about Monday Night Raw. Of course, Raw was last night on the USA Network. Not a ton to really write home about, let's be honest. It was a show. It was a show. Stuff happened, but not a lot in terms of really, groundbreaking stuff. Really enjoyed the main event between Rollins and Bobby Lashley. The finish, whilst it's a WWE finish, it makes sense. You can't have the two contenders for the World Championships at the Rumble face off and have one of them lose clean. So they had to do the finish they did, which was, the Hurt Business, Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin attack Bobby Lashley. And also you have the Usos attack Seth Rollins. That makes sense, I guess. So that was fine. I thought the Maurice segment with Beth Phoenix was actually quite enjoyable. I enjoyed Maurice's promo a lot. The opener was I mean, I did not enjoy the opening segment. I just thought it was so badly written, to be honest with you. The Alpha Academy graduation stuff. You know what? I like Chad Gable's work on the mic. Was it stupid? Was it goofy? Did some of the comedy fall flat? But that's WWE comedy. It tends to fall flat. I enjoyed the Alpha Academy segment, I must say. So coming out of Raw, of course, next week is the go-home edition to the Rumble. WWE has announced 3 top segments for next week's edition of Raw. It will be headlined by a weigh-in for Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar at the Royal Rumble for the WWE Championship. Paul Heyman and MVP will be at ringside with their superstars. Now, that is quite curious because I think, in fairness, they could have done the contract signing, and we've seen contract signings 10 million times, and we don't need to see them again. So the weigh-in, I guess, kind of plays in a little bit to this whole... They've got MMA backgrounds, Lesnar in the UFC, Bobby Lashley in Bellator, they're combat fighters. You know, they can have that way, and I guess that's fine. It's the same as a contract signing. It's an in-ring segment which will end in a brawl. Ideally, I think you would have hoped that this had maybe a bit more of a build or more time, but it's still Lesnar Lashley at the Royal Rumble. Big pay-per-view, big match. I'm excited to see it. And to be honest, does it really need that much of a build? Probably not. I still would like to have that segment that is MVP and Paul Heyman going at each other. We haven't had that because Lesnar wasn't there with Heyman last night on Raw. But the storyline was continued with this whole Hurt Business stuff. I just hope that isn't the finish at the Rumble. I hope the finish at the Rumble isn't Lashley's looking like he's going places and then Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander get involved. I don't think that's needed. I don't think that's needed. So they did a career retrospective for both guys talking about WWE and MMA, which was fine. That was fun. But next week will be the big segment between them. In the final Raw before the Rumble as well, it also featured The Miz hosting a birthday party extravaganza for his wife Maurice, who will turn 39 this coming Friday. So we'll have more segments. It's weird the Edge and Miz feud now with Beth Phoenix and Maurice because there's no action. Because they can't do any action because Edge has only got specific dates that he's going to wrestle and he shouldn't be wrestling on TV all the time. But the problem is it just means you have segments. You have segments on television. So we've had about 10 million The Cutting Edges or 10 million Miz TVs, or now we've got a birthday celebration, or we've got renewing of vows. Everything's just a segment. Everything's just a gimmick. And it's kind of like, I appreciate their ability to stretch it out, and I think they've done a fairly decent job of it. I suppose there have been some weeks where when they announced there's going to be another talk show, you just go, again? Seriously? But it must be said, I did enjoy the segment last night with Maurice on the mic talking about, Beth Phoenix and her history, 2-minute matches, and then she hit her in the back with the purse. As soon as put it this way, when she carried the purse out to the ring, it's a red flag because WWE doesn't allow you to carry purses out to the ring. So obviously there's something in the purse. She hits Beth Phoenix in the back of the head or the back of the neck with the purse, and it's a brick. It's pro wrestling. And I think that's just funny that in the same space of like 7 days where they've basically said WWE, we're not a pro wrestling company, AEW's pro wrestling, they run an angle on Raw where someone gets hit in the back of a head with a purse that has a brick in it. I mean, that's literally the most pro wrestling thing ever. But I did enjoy the segment, and I thought Maurice did a great job on the mic. I really did. And also, as well, as you can see on the screen right there, there's going to be a segment that's being phrased as an Alpha Academy Academic Challenge. As I mentioned, this past week, there was the graduation ceremony, and if RK Bro can pass this academic challenge, they'll get a rematch for the Raw Tag Team Championships. Obviously, they will pass it. They will get a rematch, and that rematch will be at the Rumble. Otis looks scared when they did the academic challenge, so I guess the angle next week is that Otis is stupid and he's not going to pass the academic challenge. Okay. Look, I didn't hate the graduation ceremony last night. I thought it was, acceptable television. But next week I'm worried. It's a very gimmick-heavy Raw. It's a very gimmick-heavy Raw. That's the direction that they're going in. So we'll wait and see. Speaking of the Rumble as well, we have new participants announced for the Rumble. Obviously, as mentioned, that's next weekend. Kevin Owens declared, I'll do it right now. I'm officially declaring my spot for the Royal Rumble. And they're even mocking it, and this is kind of a pet peeve, but it's so true. So Kevin Owens backstage goes, I've got a big announcement to make, an earth-shattering announcement. It's the biggest announcement you've ever seen. And I went, obviously he's going to be entering the Rumble. But is this like self-awareness? Is this self-awareness that the writing is dumb and it's lazy, but they're doing it anyway? They did it with the opening match. The opening match was Becky Lynch and Doudrop versus Bianca Belair and Liv Morgan. And all on social media, the WWE's own social media team is going, can they coexist? Can they coexist? And people will laugh at that and go, oh, WWE, they're aware. But you go, wait a minute, let's take a step back here. WWE are openly admitting their writing sucks, it's tired and it's lazy, and yet they're doing it anyway. How insane is that? Honestly, how insane is that? The writing's terrible. Nobody likes it. We've done this thing over and over and over and over and over again. It's like this big announcement. Oh, I'm doing this gigantic announcement. I'm officially declaring myself in the Rumble, but they do it anyway. That is insane. That is insane. Nevertheless, I mentioned Kevin Owens declared himself for the Rumble, and also on the women's side of things, Liv Morgan and Bianca Belair have announced their spots for the Women's Royal Rumble, and I think Belair's probably a favourite in that one. We saw another Alexa Bliss segment, so I suppose possibly she could be involved, and if she is involved, she could be a favourite too. Before Raw last night, we saw another taping for Main Event, which featured once again two NXT 2.0 stars, or NXT original stars, I suppose, compete in the matches. We saw Pete Dunne face off against T-Bar and Tommaso Ciampa going up against Akira Tozawa. I won't tell you the results of said matches, but you can probably guess. You can probably guess what the results would be for that match. I think it's obviously it's got to be the beginning of call-ups for both, because again, Pete Dunne re-signed with WWE at the end of last year, so he's not going anywhere. Tommaso Ciampa has several years or months left on his contract anyway. He's not going anywhere. And I think it's just a case of now, these people that are in NXT that were part of the old version of NXT, Pete Dunne and Tommaso Ciampa do not fit in NXT anymore. They don't. They don't fit in NXT 2.0. They're old. They're Triple H's vision. They're not old, but they're Triple H's vision of NXT. The NXT 2.0 vision is young guys, limited experience backgrounds from college backgrounds, whether it's or sporting backgrounds, whether it's the NBA, NFL, amateur wrestling, bodybuilding, NHL, you name it, right? That's what they're looking for. They're looking for college athletes at this point. Pete Dunne and Tommaso Ciampa don't fit in there. So either you release them, which they have been doing for a lot of names in NXT, or you call them up to the main roster. And I think that's what's happening. Pete Dunne is probably way overdue. The surprising one to me is Tommaso Ciampa, because for so long he had said, like, if I'm asked to go up to Raw or SmackDown, I'm leaving, I'm retiring, because I don't want to be involved in that environment, and two, I'm not sure my body can handle it. He's had serious neck injuries. He nearly had to retire because of his neck injury. But that was a different landscape. He loved that version of NXT. He loved the Triple H version of NXT. The Triple H version of NXT doesn't exist anymore. So now I guess it's a case of Ciampa being like, you know what? NXT 2.0 is essentially run like the main roster now. So I might as well go up there and see how long my body can take it and make as much money as possible. And I think that's what he's going to do, unless he's also worked out some kind of a deal where he's sort of said to Vince or to whoever, like, look, guys, I'm telling you, I can't do that schedule. The live event schedule, I can't do it. If you can give me something that's even somewhat reduced, maybe we can figure something out. So Tommaso Ciampa on the main roster, I'd love to see it. Pete Dunne on the main roster, I'd love to see it. I think they do need more names, but do I trust the main roster to get that right? Of course I don't. Of course I don't. Not a chance. Darth Thor says, honestly, I would watch the Moon Knight trailer for 3 hours overall. Great trailer as well. Great trailer. I'm not sure about Oscar Isaac's English accent, it must be said. I'm a huge Moon Knight fan as well. I've got a load of the graphic novels, so I'm a big fan of Moon Knight, Mark Spector, but I just like they do good stuff. I didn't even think Eternals was that bad as well. I know a lot of people, that's like quite controversial because everyone hated Eternals, but I didn't think it was terrible. I didn't. T. Simmons says, insane, it's dumb and ridiculous. I'm tired of the coexist crap. I think everyone is. I think WWE is. And ultimately they would change it, but who's making the final decision there? That's the thing. And as Justin Cruz says, both stars will be in the Rumble and go to the main roster. That's probably a good point as well. They could absolutely be in the Rumble. Maybe that will be the way they debut as well. Finally, when it comes to Elimination Chamber, we've spoken about this a couple of times, so we won't dwell on it too much. But WWE has officially announced the Elimination Chamber to return in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They announced yesterday that they will return to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia on Saturday, February 19. So these Saturday pay-per-view dates continue, which for people over here in the UK is a godsend, it must be said. Now, the Elimination Chamber 2022 will be held at a new venue built in 2021, the Jeddah Superdome, which is the world's largest pillarless Superdome. A media report from last year noted that the dome can hold 5,200 vehicles, but it did not include a number of seats. WWE previously rang the King Abdullah International Stadium when in Jeddah, so this could be a really big event in terms of capacity. Which is, I guess, exciting. As I mentioned, it was previously reported last week that WWE may be rebranding the Elimination Chamber to the WrestleMania Chamber, but nothing had been confirmed, and today's announcement did not include the name change. So Meltzer wasn't necessarily accurate, but in fairness to him, I don't think he said it was completely confirmed. He said it was something that they were considering, and frankly, I'm glad they just keep the Elimination Chamber name as it is. I don't know if the actual event's going to be called the Elimination Chamber. I would hope it wasn't. I would hope it would still be called Super Showdown, but the main event was the Elimination Chamber. I understand branding and marketing. It bothers me when they have Hell in a Cell as a pay-per-view or TLC as a pay-per-view and they shoehorn in a gimmick match. No, you don't need to do that. But I'm glad that it's not called the WrestleMania Chamber because it's enough. It's enough. WrestleMania and I think this is probably why they came to this conclusion, don't water down the brand. The brand is WrestleMania. It's strong. Why would you have the WrestleMania Chamber, WrestleMania Night 1, WrestleMania Night 2, and then WrestleMania Backlash? I didn't even like WrestleMania Backlash last year because it's not WrestleMania. It's just an attempt to try and fool people to thinking it's got something to do with WrestleMania, so they'll buy it. Or they'll sign up to the network. That's realistically what it is. Or people search for WrestleMania. So if they search for WrestleMania during that period of time, they'll see WrestleMania Backlash or they'd see the WrestleMania Chamber and they'd be more likely to come across it. Again, from a marketing perspective and a branding perspective, that does make a little bit of sense. But from a just, the actual, I guess, it being special or meaning something, that's when it kind of hurts. But look, guys, that's all your WWE news today. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the video. Be sure to subscribe as well. As I mentioned, there'll be an AEW news video and an Impact news video coming out today as well. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Peace.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click at the bottom there to subscribe.